You may be going through a hard time right now, and maybe your confidence is lacking. Maybe your self esteem has been impacted. Well, today I'm going to talk about 5 lessons I've learned from some very hard times that I want to share with you that I believe may help. And if you stay until the end, I have an extra point for you then. Now, just before we dive into today's episodes, if you want to make sure you're up to date with all the latest episodes on self esteem and confidence and mindset, all you got to do is click in the link in the show notes below and you can be kept in the loop and also get a free weekly confidence tip when you sign up for the free weekly newsletter. So, I've had times when I've been so low in my life where I just didn't want to get out of bed. I wanted to be asleep because it had been a much more easier place and life just seemed exhausting, even the small things. And I even experienced that in 2022, 2023 in parts. And it was really difficult. There are times when it was really hard to make this podcast. And there was a spell where I was really, really down that actually I had to repeat some old episodes. Now, it's always a work in progress. We're never going to, I've learned there's never, I used to think there'd be a point, very naively, when I was younger, that I get to a point where there'd be like no problems, life was pretty good, right? And the reality is no, there's always problems. Problems, as Tony Robbins once said, are a gift of life. They're what allow us to grow and develop as a result. Now, it's not always easy, obviously, in the moment. It can be exhausting and really hard work. And that's why I found it really important to have the right resources, including people in my life for supporting me with that. It has been really low though. And the beauty is the years or the times I've had when it's been really tough, I've been able to grow as a result and take lessons out of them and contribute to sharing my experience with others, like I'm doing on this podcast right now. And there are some lessons I believe you can take from your past challenges, maybe from present ones. Now, obviously, if you're going through a real tough situation, make sure you got the right people around you, you got the right resources in your life, and give yourself a bit of grace to work through that, which is really, really important. And realize this is just coming from my perspective. Realize that if you're pushing yourself to do what you usually do, it's usually not a good thing. I've found personally, if I'm doing my sales work or my project management work, it can be really hard when I'm in a really difficult place. So that's why I think it's really important to, yeah, like I say, give yourself that grace. Now, I wanted to just share my experience from some really tough times in my life and 5 lessons. There's many lessons, but 5 key lessons that I want to share with you. And I want you to ask yourself this: if you're not learning from things, are you really growing? Are you really getting the benefit? Now, I'm not saying you need to like just click the switch and you're fine when you're in a really difficult time. Absolutely not. The opposite. I'm saying that from your past, rather than I've got to a point where, like in the past, I would hold on to grudges. Yet when I evolved in my growth, I realized that actually I could use them as lessons. And that's what I'm doing today, sharing with you. But ask yourself, is it helping you by holding a grudge against someone or something continuously for months or years instead of learning from it and using it to feel better about yourself? Where if you're like me, I suddenly learned that it's better to take the lessons and really the opportunity to growth. So here's my top 5 lessons. Let's dive in. Number 1, nothing you can be certain about, absolutely nothing in this world, right? There used to be a phrase, a job for life. There's no such thing. Right? There's no telling what future. You could lose your job at any moment. Sorry to break it to you. Like business, there's even more uncertainty in owning a business. Um, a relationship, people think, oh, I've got this relationship for life. There's no certainty in that either. Like not just intimate relationships, but relationships with other people. There is no certainty in life, except the certainty you have in yourself. Now, it's not to think the worst about everything and panic about everything. It's just to realize that if you can work on the certainty in yourself, you're going to have a better way of approaching life when things get challenging, right? And then you can also feel more rest assured in yourself. So that's number 1. The second thing is go with the bends in the river. This is a great phrase by one of my mentors, Peter Sage. And what he's talking about is a lot of us, we get these challenges and we fight them. Now, I think that's, can be better than just being like, oh, this all happens to me. Our life's so hard and all these kind of things and these stories. Now, sometimes we do need to grieve and feel things. But the next step up he teaches is to fight things, like push against some of the resistance. However, when things aren't going our way and we always going that way, it can be exhausting. Have you experienced that when you're just constantly fighting things like this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, instead of actually looking at it as a sign and maybe being redirected to something better? And I'll give you an example of this in my own life. I was trying to get a job constantly for years in the public sector, a permanent job. I was always in temporary, I was doing a good job. There just wasn't a permanent. And in the end, a great company came in and offered me a job working for them. It was better pay, it was a better location. And then I realized, like, I only found out about this sort of bends in the river, like phrase Peter Sage shared later, years later. But I realized that was truly a gift. Like, maybe if I realized, and actually, when I got offered this job, it was when I had stopped fighting against all this. I'm not going to get a job. I was just like, look, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to look at opportunities elsewhere. And then one came up for me. So maybe it's something so hard work, whether it's a work situation, whether it's a business idea, whether it's a relationship, maybe that thing, and it can be tough to tell yourself this sometimes. And I've even had this in dating relationships as well. Aside from the work example, maybe it's just not meant to be for you and actually being redirected. And it can be a hard thing to accept sometimes, especially when you're in the moment, right? But a while after, you can start to see it, right? But if you're able to realize it later, it can be a real blessing. So instead of trying to fight the current, as Peter Sage says, go with the bends in the river. Start being smart with life. Start actually seeing, is this a sign that this thing's not right for me? And now, how do you say, well, aren't I just giving up? Well, you'll know if you're just giving up too easy, or that, maybe you got to tell yourself the truth and it's not just working, right? The things where I've excelled in, it doesn't even, I'm working hard, but it doesn't really seem like work. Like my podcast, I've been guided to help so many people by just creating content. I don't do much research into podcasts at all. People spend that like ages researching and don't get the success I fortunately had. And I realized I've been directed. Now, it depends how spiritual you are and all these kind of things, because I've got quite spiritual in that way from all the experiences I've gone through. I realized I've been directed to that. Now, there's things in my life, it wasn't meant for me. I used to do 100-meter sprint, 200-meter, and I just couldn't run a certain speed. I could never break under 12 seconds. And I kept fighting and fighting it, and it just wouldn't go for me. And some people just turn up, they do 100 meters effortlessly. They may even break 11 seconds. Obviously, world champions are under 10 seconds, right? And sometimes that's just life giving you an indication. Sometimes we find it hard to accept because we're like, I really wanted that, or like, oh, I thought I wanted that, right? So sometimes it's better to go the bends in the river than trying to fight things. The third thing, inner world leads the outer world. Now, this, I appreciate not everyone's going to get on board with this. This is going to be very, very hard. And it's a bit, it's quite a deep spiritual, but there's also there is science to it. If you want to get the more scientific approach, read some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, right? Especially read the book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? The inner world is impacted by the outer world. If you're trying to wait for things on the outside world, i.e., by the way, the inner world is everything that's going on in your mind and how you're processing stuff. The outer world is everything outside, like the results you're getting, what people are doing, things happening, external events, right? Now, if you're trying to wait for things to show up, like you're waiting for that person to show up, you're waiting for the job opportunity, you're expecting people to be a certain way to feel good or compliment you. Now, of course, those things can happen and you can feel good about yourself, right? Now and then we might meet someone we really like and something forms. Now and then we might get that job opportunity. Maybe something does come our way, right? And we feel good. And I'm really pleased that's happened for you. Yeah, when things don't, it can be tough, or something really bad happens to us, it can be really tough. Now, I'm not saying you're never going to feel bad if you just focus on the inner world when something externally comes along that really knocks your feet. Like, there's going to be things that are going to impact you, right? But like, the majority of human beings are led by things outside of themselves for feeling good and bad. And it is a very hard skill to master, because from a young age, a lot of us are taught, like, we're getting this validation from our caregivers, where we're doing, behaving in certain ways to feel good about ourselves, rather than it just naturally coming from us. And we all have different experiences, and therefore that shapes our lives, and we can do something about it. This is kind of what I'm teaching, right? No matter how old you are, I genuinely believe, right? But if you're like relying on certain results and things going your way to only feel good, well, you're at risk. Okay. But if you work on your inner world, like visualizing every day, feeling good, really, really like training yourself to be more fulfilled, more grateful, all these kind of things, regardless of what's going on, when things go good for you, like externally outside of yourself, you're going to feel even better. And when things get tough, well, you may feel a little bit hurt. That's life, but it won't, from my experience, impact you as much. Okay. The fourth thing, if you're not growing, you're not going to be able to contribute as much. I realized when I was in a spell of not reading, not learning, not developing myself, I felt really unfulfilled, really unhappy, and I couldn't give the same impact on the podcast I give right now. Right. So if you're not growing, you're not contributing. So do something for you that makes you feel like you're growing, whether it's reading a book, watching YouTube, listening to a podcast. That has been a key for me. And then the fifth one I wanted to share, and I've got a bonus one for you as well, is the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of your peer group. This was a Tony Robbins quote as well. And what this means is, it's a very, very like cliche thing in the personal growth world, that like, you're impacted by the sum of the five people around you, right? It's very true. And knowing something intellectually and hearing it is not the same as actually living it and experiencing it. So if you want to live a better quality life, hang out with people, even if it's on the online space, who are always upping their game. And it's not to say you need to kick anyone who's not into their personal growth or developing themselves out of your life. No, of course not. You're always going to have that. I've got people like that in my life, and they're great human beings. It's just I make sure I spend my time, a lot of my time, with growth-minded individuals as well. So that's my fifth one as well. Now, I've got a bonus point for you. Just before I go on to that, though, I want to mention again that if you want to get weekly updates, or when the latest confidence podcast, the latest self-esteem and mindset podcast episodes are out, and you want to get a weekly confidence tip, all you got to do is click in the show notes below to sign up for our free weekly newsletter for absolutely free. Okay, the bonus point, and a crucial one I want to really share, is the meaning you put to something is absolutely everything. And again, this is going to be hard for some people to get on board, right? If you're listening to this point, I don't think this is going to be you. Like, I think you're going to maybe appreciate this point, right? Completely, like with any of my episodes, completely up to you how you interpret it and take it away. And that's kind of the point I'm making right now, the meaning, right? Sometimes when an event happens in our life, we automatically create meaning, and that means that, right? Rather than looking at it neutrally and then applying a meaning. If you're able to even pause and neutrally look at it, you can actually start to see some of the stories. And as human beings, we've got stories, we've got memories, we've got beliefs, and we automatically project them onto a new situation. So, for example, right, maybe you're someone who has, this is just top of my head, I didn't write this down, right? Maybe you're a girl and you're looking for a boyfriend, right? And you've had a few tough relationships in the past, right? And or dating experiences in the past, right? And then you meet a guy and you think it's going well, and it doesn't work out, and he kind of just ghosts you, right? Or vice versa. or whatever gender, whatever sexuality you want to play into this example, right? And then you go, right, all men are assholes, hate them, absolute scum, right? So what's happened immediately is you've projected limiting beliefs and you're saying, oh, you've generalized, right? Instead of saying, and I've generalized, by the way, like when it's not worked out with a woman, like, and it could be very, not the same way, but into these limiting beliefs in this kind of spiral. Instead, the neutral way of looking at this would be like, it didn't work out with this person, which means what? We're not together. That's what it neutrally means. Okay. Now, the meaning you're putting to it is you're generalizing all your beliefs in. So, and this is really hard. I'm not saying it's easy, by the way, right? Or another example. I'm going to use my own experience in the workplace, right? I couldn't, I kept getting job interviewed and doing really well, and I just couldn't get a job, permanent job where I worked. So I went for a job interview once, and I got to the final with another guy at the final, whatever you call it, right? The last two. And I didn't get the job. And I was like, oh, this stupid, this stupid organization never give me stuff. I'm never given the credit I deserve. Oh, like they cheated. They put like a guy from their own department in for this interview who was always going to get it. And then that's the story and the meaning I put around it, right? What actually happened, if we look at it neutrally, is I went for a job and I didn't get the job. Right. No story. We don't bring in the story yet. That's what happened. I didn't get the job. And that means I didn't get the job, right? Neutral. And then I can put whatever meaning I want on it. And to pause that meaning is really, really a difficult skill. So if you're wanting to really develop the quality of your life, start looking at the meaning and the stories and the beliefs you bring into things. And start with something small, like maybe someone cuts you off in traffic. People get really angry at that. They go, this person disrespected me. They don't care about me. Maybe it's just like, another meaning could be, right, this person cut me off on traffic. That's a neutral meaning, right? So they went ahead of you in the queue. And then the meaning you put in it is like, I'm angry, like they disrespected me, all these kind of things. Another meaning could be they were in a rush to a hospital to see their dying relative. Wow. Look at it in that perspective. How do you feel? So the meanings, and it could be something else, right? They could just, but then there could be someone, unfortunately, who's just not, just not awake that day, right? The meaning we put to things is everything. And if you really want to start paying attention and increase the quality of life, start looking at the meanings. And like I say, it's not easy. Start with small things, like maybe someone cuts you off in traffic, or maybe someone cuts a queue for coffee or something, right? Because then that can really make a massive impact, right? And it's a skill I'm always working on. So that's what I got for you today. I wanted to share 5 lessons I've learned from some difficult times in my life and share them with you. So that's what I got for you today. I appreciate you for being here. You're improving other people's lives by being the best you. And remember, you are in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.